Welcome to Cori's Clay Class. Okay, so I'm going to start by just showing you a bunch of different examples of some mugs that I make and the handles that go on some of them. Let's just start by saying that I used to, for 15 years, I don't know how many years, make hand-built handles because I never took the time to really pay attention and practice making a nice handle. So I didn't feel like it was settling. I just felt like, oh, I don't have time to really learn how to make nice handles because I liked handles, but I didn't know how to do them nicely. So they always came out thin and scraggly or edgy or huge or too small, or it just didn't work out nicely, right? So here's an example of an old mug of mine with the handles that I used to make. So a handle that kind of looked like that. And it completely fine, comfortable. It wasn't pulled, right? So, and it had some texture to it sometimes, and I'll show you how I did that. So there's nothing wrong with not pulling your handle. Here's another handle that's not pulled, and it's kind of sweet. It looks just fine. So I'll show you how to do those too, because I don't want anybody who doesn't pull handles to think that they're not going to have a lovely handle, because you can have a beautiful handle. It doesn't have to be pulled. I now find that the handle making part of the mug is for me one of the more enjoyable parts of the completion of the mug. I love the way it looks with a really nice handle. I don't like thin little handles. I like buffy kind of handles. So let me just show you quickly a bunch of mugs and the handles and where they sit, and then we'll go into making them, okay? That kind of a handle. So that is just put on, it's pulled from the mug. So I don't pull the handle first and let it lay out. I pull it from the mug. So I a component, pull it, and then I'll show you a couple of ways that I handle a couple of ways that I deal with the transition onto the mug itself. So that's a kind of handle. Again, these are pulled from the actual pot, okay? So a nice fat connection here, and I haven't added any clay to that. That's just a nice fat connection there. And then I add this little extra bit down here because I kind of like for the visual weight to reflect both sides being similar. Okay, so that's another mug. And I just pull this with that spine, and I'll show you how I do that. That's another one. Just pulled it, little bit of a spine. The deal with a handle for me is I want it to be ovaled slightly, so it feels really comfortable in your hand. If it's too thin, it doesn't feel nice, and I don't have one that's too thin here, but if it's too thin, it just doesn't feel good, right? You want it to fill up some span on your finger. So that's another guy. And again, just a little doodad back here. I'll sometimes put them inside here as well. Sometimes I'll add some decorative slip trail to the top and to the bottom, and that just gives it a bit of fulcrum, a bit of leverage. And when making handles, there's a couple things to be thinking about, right? You want to think about the fact that it's a lever this way. It's also something you're going to hold the weight of this way. So the bottom part has to be comfortable. When I put these little guys on the bottom, and I don't do them on all of them, but I tend to do them on a lot because it's become a little signature-ish, and I happen to think it's really comfortable. And this is interesting because you can either put your finger against it and you're pushing against that, and that's giving you some leverage, or you can put it underneath, and that's a different way to hold it too. So it's kind of, just kind of neat. Hand-built. Little hand-built handle again. And we'll do one of those, okay? So hi to everybody. Thank you so much for coming in and for being potters, because we are just the most phenomenal phenomenal group of people together. What a strong community. So thank you for including me in this community. Oh, I'll get all flushy and stuff. Okay, this one here, some people do this. I'm a this kind of a handle. I tend to do that a lot. I stick 2 fingers in. That's what I often do. When you're making your mug, you want to think about where it's going to feel good in terms of the weight, right? I tend to make some huge mugs and I make some smaller mugs. When you have a mug that's really large, you really want to consider how wide the handle has to be. You want to be able to have space for your fingers to get in and not touch the pot so you don't burn yourself. But you don't want it to be so large that here's your mug out here and it's too heavy to hold, because it'll become a little planter. It won't be a mug. People won't want to use it, I think. That's a really big mug. Again, I gave myself enough of a span at the bottom that I can stick a pinky under there to help hold it. I could also put all 4 in, and this guy here is just giving me a little extra leverage. I keep saying that word leverage, but that's kind of what I'm saying. I do a fair amount of slip trailing. Slip trailing is done in either the same clay body or a slip trail slip that I use. Really easy, basic slip. I'll give you guys the recipe if you want. You can screenshot it. This here is a glaze that I have formulated, and it looks very different in a slow cool than in a fast cool. The same glaze looks very, very different on a clay with a little bit of iron in it versus a fairly white clay or more of a porcelainous kind of a clay. These have about 8 or 9 glazes that have been sprayed. Oops, 8 or 9 glazes that I spray on. And each batch is a little bit different. I don't do them in the same order. I just kind of start, and I do way more than I probably should because they take me for flipping ever, but I kind of love the way they look. They very much are oceany for me. So that's what these guys are. Okay. Enough about all that. Should we just get started now? Should we just make some handles happen? I'm going to show you this here. Just a bag of clay, right? And I just take a wad out. Okay, so I just have a wad of clay. I make it's probably bigger than a golf ball. Maybe a little bit bigger than that. It's a feel for me. So that's kind of where I am here. Like that. Fits in my hand. I have small hands, okay? The pieces and the things that I tend to keep handy are a couple of paintbrushes that are small and a little stiff. They're soft but stiff. Sometimes a toothbrush, but not usually. Most often, a pin tool or a serrated rib and a pin tool. Okay, so that's going to be a big one. So I have a couple different shaped mugs here. I have that kind and this kind. So let's do, this looks to me like it would be good for this size, because that's a lot. This is a shorter mug. That's going to be too much for that one. And it doesn't matter if it's extra. It just hangs out for a while. Okay. So I take my circle of clay, and this is kind of my way of wedging it, right? I'll go back and forth and just get it to be soft and conditioned. Then I just kind of go back and forth a bit, but I don't go all the way. So I'm making it flat, just like that, okay? If I have little bits that are overlapping like this, it's here that I'm going to just smooth those out a little bit. Okay. Now pat it down a bit. I'm going to hold the end like an oval. And here I'm going to widen this, which is the connection point. So I want it to be wider. So what I want to do is I want to make that attachment fat. I want it to be nice and juicy. So I'm going to hold it between my hands, make an oval here. And now I'm going to pat it down. Often I'll do it with this part of my hand because it just widens it nicely. And I want to make kind of a pillow on this side here, like all around this. I want it to billow out a little bit. Pillow, billow. So again, I'll hold this and I'm just going to press it from the inside into that fat part of my fingers. Can you see what I've done here? Okay. So there you can see, it's spread it a little bit, right? So I don't want it to be a thin lip here, if you want to call it a lip, but I do want it to be spread. Now again there, I'm going to smooth that little crease out because I don't want it to be a point of breaking, ripping, tearing. What's the word? Cracking. That's the word. Oh my God, Cori. Okay. So now I want to make this the shape that I want it to look like on the actual mug, okay? So I'm going to just get that into a shape that I like. That's pretty okay for me. I want to make it fairly symmetrical, fairly even, balanced from the left to the right side. Kind of like that. Okay. Now I start taking this and I pinch it. And I pinch with the spine that's going to get left. And this is so, this angle in there, that triangle that I'm forming, is going to deal with the right side. This triangle in here is going to deal with the left side. Okay? So I'm pressing. And as I'm pressing in, this is moving up. The whole shaft is moving up. Can you kind of see that it's moving up? Sure, my fingers are moving down, but it's moving up. Once I go down once, I then take my fingers and I'm going to gently soften that spine. Can you see the profile there? Okay, so I just keep softening that down just a little bit. I'm going to do it again. So what I'm really doing here is I'm just getting it started, right? As opposed to pulling the whole thing. I'm just giving it a suggestion of where I want it to be. So now that's what's happened. It's nice and gentle on the corners or on the sides, and it's a little wider here, like a football or an egg or an oval. Okay. Now the next part's kind of interesting. Many people use slip. Many people use water. I tend to use magic water. It softens the clay a little bit, so you have to be a little bit mindful of that. Because you don't want to put too much on, because it will soften the attachment. And you don't really want that either. Okay, so here I go. Nice. This is going to be my sodium silicate magic water guy. So I'm going to put it just in the center, and I'm going to hold this upside down a bit because I don't want it to run, okay? I want it to run backwards. Why? Because it gets soft, right? Okay. So I'll just put it on that, and I'm going to put it where I want to join. Is this still in view? Okay. So I'm going to gently put it where I want to join it. And I'm going to put a little bit down here as well. But I'm not going to put any scoring. I'm not going to scratch it at all. So what I am going to do, however, is once this is on, I'm going to twist it, okay? And I'm going to really compress it. Support it from the inside. Twist, twist. Oh, I wish you could have heard what I just heard. It went. And now I'm going to press it in. And I'm going to press with my right thumb on the right-hand side. I'm going to support this just on my chest. I'm going to take my left hand and I'm going to do it similarly. so that both sides are sort of addressed in a similar way. And then I can clean anything up that I want to clean up afterwards. But let's just do this. So now that it's on, it's on there nicely. I'm just gonna run my finger around this, and I'm gonna hold this up so you guys can all see what that looks like. Can you see that now? Like that's nice and on. That's juicy and on. Okay? I don't think that's going anywhere. Let's see. Okay. So now I'm going to put my left hand inside like that. This is still a little soft. It's not quite hard, leather hard. I thought that it was, but it's moving a bit. So I'm going to take some water. This is my hand, right? I'm going to pull, and I'm going to pull, and I'm going to pull, and I'm going to pull. And I'm going to turn this as well, okay? This is, that corner here addresses one side, while this addresses the other. But those aren't the same. One's more round, one's more pointy. So I'm going to turn my pot as well, okay? And that will help to address both sides evenly. I tend to also use this part of my thumb, this it's almost just before the bone, that knuckle, and it dances on both sides. That's what's going to create my spine, okay? So that's what's happening so far. Can you see that spine? Okay, so I'm just gonna, and then I go over the spine sometimes too if need be. I'm gonna just wrap my hands up and up. I don't know, I'm gonna turn completely around, okay, and see if you can see this. Address the side of the attachment if you need to. I want to just sweeten that up because it was bulging out a bit, so take the time, sweeten it up. And I'm just pulling, got an air bubble in there. Get that out. Turn it around, do the same thing. I'll also sometimes use this sort of action. This way, and this way, and this way. Okay. But did you notice there was no scratching, no scoring? So what no scoring can also do is I think it can help alleviate some possible fissures that can happen. The other thing, remember, is you want the handle to feel really nice and comfortable, which means you don't want it to be too thin. So that's kind of a nice thickness, I think, for the handle for me. Okay. Sometimes the handle will sway one way or the other, so address it right before you go and attach it. Just address it. I'm going to take my thumb and just run it down a little bit on both sides because I want that spine to be pronounced, and that'll help pronounce it, and then smooth down those sides. So that's what we have going on now, okay? At this point, you have a choice. You can just turn your pot over and let it just hang out, just like that. So I'll often do this, and I'll just put it on the edge of my table, which is what I'm going to do right now. And then we'll come back to them. We'll do about 2 or 3 of them, and then we'll come back, okay? Because we have time. Okay, there you go. It's just sitting here. It's just having a little sit down. It's just sitting. It's been hanging, right? On the side of my table. It's just been hanging like this. So now I'm ready to attach the thing. So I tend to put my fingers, because I want to be able to get enough fingers in there, and I know that I have small hands, little small guys. So if this was a man holding it who was a larger guy, his fingers would be beefier too, right? So I'm gonna put my fingers or my thumb in here just to spread that out a tiny bit more. As I bring it down, follow it so that I have a little bit of space here so that somebody with bigger hands can get in. We're gonna attach it down here, okay? I don't have to scratch and score it. I can if I want. We'll see. I'm going to hang this off of the edge, and I do that so that this end here isn't in my way. Two ways to do this. Okay, so this area here of the handle, I can lay it flat, kind of like this, right? Or I can butt it and let it wrap around like this. See the difference? They'll give you a very different look. One will give you more of a D look, or a C, a backwards C look, and the other will give you more of a question mark-ish look. Okay, so that is, I'm going to do the question mark-ish. I'm going to move it off of there just a little bit, and I'm going to make certain it's in line, which it is. There. So now I'm going to lift it up just a little bit, okay? To give me a little bit more space. There. From here, look at it. I'm going to run my finger just a little bit like this back and forth, and I'm going to support it on the inside. Okay? I'm going to just support that on the inside. And I'm just running my finger, I'm toggling my finger like this, rocking it, like that. Take that excess and snap it off. Now, again, I'm just going to flatten that out a bit, spread it, make it look intentional. And with this one, so that's what it looks like right now. To me, that's not sweet yet. Okay, that's not quite lovely and finished yet. So I want this to be sweeter. That's not sweet for me. So I'm taking my hand in water and I'm gonna sweeten the deal, right? I'm gonna do that thing again. I'm gonna just work that so that it's prettier. I just want it to be pretty, and I want it to be functional, and I want it to feel great in somebody's hand. So this is a little flat right here for me. So let me just widen that up a bit. And I'm going to lift it a little bit. Remember, it's clay, right? You can manipulate it a little bit. Now this part here, I like it to come out a little bit so that this finger, this finger can hang on to something. So I just give it a little. There we go. Dun, 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 dun. Just take the time and practice. And if it's not what you want, make it what you want. So don't settle for, oh, I got the handle on. It's great. I did it. If it's not lovely for you, make it lovely. Take the time and really practice. You know, make 100 handles, and I bet you by the 80th handle, you'll go, what did I wait all this time for? And it probably is before the 80th handle. I'm just saying. Okay.